Okay, hello again. I'll be reading something different today. Since I'm going to the third stage in English department, we're going to be having a subject called linguistics. So I thought about, checking what's this subject about, and I saw some videos on YouTube about chapter one. And I kind of began to understand what it talks about, but I said about what if I, read the chapter one by myself and try to uh, analyze it or try to explain it in a simple way to myself in a video form so I can understand it better. It's not like studying, it's just like trying to check the subject, before actually studying it when college is back. Yeah, I'm not like putting a lot of effort in this or really studying it. No, I hate studying in holidays, but it's just some, reading and speaking practice for me by just using the subject. So yeah, let's start. Let's start. Here we had a quote or a phrase by Darwin. The suspicion does not appear improbable that the progenitors of man, either the males or females, or both sexes, before they had acquired the power of expressing their mutual love in articulate language, endeavored to charm each other with musical notes and rhythm. I guess he means that when before the time that humans even articulated language or created language, they used these sounds or rhythms or notes in order to charm each other. So yeah, let's start. In Charles Darwin's vision of the origins of language, early humans had already developed musical ability prior to language and were using it. So they developed musical ability, like the ability to make music or sounds before creating a language, to charm each other. Charm each other means to attract each other. This may not match the typical image that most of us have of our early ancestors as rather rough characters wearing animal skins and not very charming, but is an interesting speculation about how language may have originated. It remains, however, a speculation. It's just a speculation, it's just a prediction, not something confirmed or something actually true. So we're gonna be going through many like theories, scientific theories or theories throughout the ages, about how the language was created or the origins of the languages by many like people or many scientists or many philosophers and so on. Most of them may not be true, and we're not here to prove that they're right or wrong. We're just checking them, or we're just reading them and acknowledging them, and acknowledging how the theory of language or the theory of the origin of language have evolved throughout the years. We simply don't know how language originated. We do know that the ability to produce sound and simple vocal patterning, a hum versus a grunt for example, appears to be in an ancient part of the brain that we share with all vertebrates, including fish, frogs, birds, and other mammals. But that isn't human language. These sounds that the animals or creatures make, it's still not a language. We suspect that some type of spoken language must have developed between 100,000 and 50,000 years ago, well before written language, about 5,000 years ago. Yet among the traces of earlier periods of life on Earth, we never find any direct evidence or artifacts relating to the speech of our distant ancestors. That might tell us how language was back in the early stages. So we don't have evidence or proof or things that we can rely on to know when did language actually start. Perhaps because of this absence, ignore this loud voice outside. Perhaps because of this absence of direct physical evidence, there has been no shortage of speculation about the origins of human speech. Because we don't have this much evidence, then there is few predictions or few speculations about the origins of speech, because we don't have that much of evidence. The divine source. The first source is called the divine source. Let's see more about it. In the biblical tradition, as described in the book of Genesis, God created Adam and whatsoever Adam called every living creature. That was the name thereof. Alternatively, following a Hindu tradition, Now we're gonna look at the origin of languages in terms of divine aspect, or in terms of divine traditions, like in the Bible, in the Hindu religion, and so on. Language came from Sarvasti, wife of Brahma, creator of the universe. In most religions, there appears to be a divine source who provides humans with language. In an attempt to rediscover the original divine language, a few experiments have been carried out, with rather conflicting results. The basic hypothesis seems to have been that if human infants were allowed to grow up without hearing any language around them, then they would spontaneously begin using the original God-given language. So let's say there's a child or an infant that got born in a place where nobody is speaking to them or nobody is using a language around them. He's like surrounded by nature or surrounded by animals with no actual humans to talk to. Then they will automatically be giving the language that God gave to all people. This is kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but that's what some people believed in, depending on their religions and their traditions and the God that they believe in. So yeah, but still a ridiculous theory. The Greek writer Herodotus reported the story of an Egyptian pharaoh named Pessimisticus or Pessimistic, who tried the experiment with two newborn babies. So there's an experiment that some Egyptian man tried. More than It was more than 2,500 years ago. After 2 years, After 2 years of isolation, except for the company of goats and a mute shepherd, children were reported to have spontaneously uttered, and not an Egyptian word, but something that was identified as the Farragan word bekos, meaning bread. The pharaoh concluded that Farragan, an older language spoken in part of what is modern Turkey, must be the original language. That seems very unlikely. The children may not have picked up this word from any human source, but as several commenters have pointed out, they must have heard what the goats were saying. First, remove the KOS ending, which was added in Greek version of the story. Then pronounce B as you with the English word bed without the de at the end, which will be be, just like what a goat sounds like, or the sound that a goat makes. So the moral of the story is, or the message of the story is that if someone in there, in this Greek story or in this Greek experiment, if an infant or a baby had grown or had grown around without humans, around just like animals or around people that do not talk to them, so they won't they won't learn the language of this country, but they will learn a language that was given to them by God, which is utterly ridiculous. So yeah, let's continue. King James IV of Scotland carried out a similar experiment around the year 1500, and the children were reported to have spontaneously started speaking Hebrew, confirming the king's belief that Hebrew had indeed been the language of the Garden of Eden. It is unfortunate that all other cases of children who have been discovered living in isolation without coming into contact with the human speech tend not to confirm the results of these types of divine source experiments. Very young children living without access to human language in their early years grow up with no language at all. We will consider the case of one such child later in chapter 12. If human language did emanate from a divine source, we have no way of reconstructing that original language, especially given the events in a place called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, as described in the book of Genesis in the Bible. So this first part talks about the origins of a language from a divine source, or from the source of religions, many religions, like some speculations and some theories about how divine source, or how divinity or religions were the source of creating a certain language. Now We're gonna take a short break, then we'll talk about the second part, which is the natural sound source.